Hey, Troop, if you're a veteran and someone told you that getting out of the military would be easy, they lied to you. And maybe they didn't mean to. I'm sure they didn't do it on purpose. But believing that can literally cost you your life. Because nobody prepares you for what happens when all that structure disappears and your mission ends, and then all of a sudden everyone expects you to just be normal again. Today I want to talk about some of the things veterans are told when they get out and why believing them destroys a lot of good people. Today's Friday Fireside is on the lies that veterans are told when they get out. You know, nobody really sits you down and tells you what it's actually going to be like when you get out of the military. Yeah, you know, we all go through TAP, we go through all the offices, we get our 1,000 signatures, but do you ever really remember someone actually talking about what it's really going to be like? You know, people shake your hand, thank you for your service. They tell you how great civilian life is going to be, how excited you should be. And most of what they say is not meant to hurt you or mislead you. They're just repeating their script. You know, they're repeating the things that they've heard before. But a lot of it just isn't true, or at least it's not the full truth. And believing it can really screw you up if you're not careful. One of the first things that people say is that you're finally going to be free. You know, no more formations, being told where to be, when to be there. That sounds great. And at first it really is, because you really are free. But what no one tells you is that that structure that you had in the military was doing a lot more for you than you realized. You always knew what the standard was. You knew what you were supposed to be doing and where you fit into the equation. When all of that disappears overnight, a lot of guys don't really feel free at all. You know, they feel lost at that point. Your sleep gets messed up, your motivation drops to zero, your days start running together. That's not necessarily being lazy or weak. That's just what happens when that structure disappears and nothing's there to replace it. The easy thing to say, and something else that you'll hear a lot on your way out the door, is just get a job and move on. You know, that'll fix everything. A job solves the money problem, and that's important, obviously, and that will keep you busy, but that doesn't really replace that purpose part. You know, in the military, even on the worst days, you knew why you were there. You knew that you were part of something bigger that mattered. You know, even if the tasking of the day sucked, you knew why you were there doing it. A lot of veterans get out and get a decent job, but they still feel empty inside. And then they feel guilty for feeling that way. And there's nothing wrong with you. You don't necessarily miss having the uniform on and having your rank as much as you miss having that mission. People always say that it gets easier with time, and that's really only half true. Time doesn't fix much on its own. What usually happens is you start isolating a little because you're tired, you're overstimulated, and then that turns into staying home more. Then you stop answering your calls and text messages. You know, at this point, maybe you're starting to drink a little more than you used to. You know, you start walking around totally numb. You're probably a real pleasure to be around at this point. And none of that happens all at once. You know, it creeps in little by little over time. And if you don't build something to counter it, time just lets it all settle in deeper. The worst lie is the one that we tell ourselves. It's the idea that if you're struggling, something must be wrong with you. A lot of veterans look around and we think that everyone else has it figured out, so we just keep our mouths shut and we try to handle it on our own. The military trained us really well for war, but not at all really for coming home. Your nervous system doesn't just shut off because your contract ended. You know, your identity is not going to reset itself overnight once you get handed your DD-214. Struggling after service is not a personal failure. It's a normal response to a huge shift that nobody properly prepares you for. Silence is what actually gets people hurt. Here's what I wish someone had told me early on. You're not broken or failing. You didn't lose something that everyone else still has. You just stepped into a new phase of life without a map or a compass. And that would throw anyone off. Getting out is not the end of your personal mission. It's just a shift to a different one. And this is where a lot of us get tripped up. You know, discipline alone is not going to be enough anymore. Discipline without purpose is just going to grind you down. You'll become a broken record until you burn yourself out. You need something to aim at. You need that purpose. The way through this isn't trying to fix your entire life all at once. You know, that's just going to overwhelm you, and that's going to lead to a whole other host of problems. You have to think small. Think 30-day rotations or 90-day chunks. You know, build one solid routine, you know, find one thing that's going to give you that sense of purpose, and have one person in your life that's going to notice if you go quiet and help hold you accountable. Stack a few of these stretches together, and then you stop coasting. And then you'll start moving with a sense of purpose again. You know, forward movement is forward movement. And it doesn't matter how slow it is. And you don't have to do it alone. That's the one lesson the military actually drilled into us that still applies today. Nobody has to fight alone. That didn't change just because our uniforms came off. There are 18 million veterans. Why would we do anything alone? If nobody warned you about any of this, consider this your warning. Coming home can be harder than people admit. Struggling does not mean that you're weak. Going silent is what can be the real danger. Reach out to another veteran, someone who understands. Build something new. Get involved with something. Even if it's small, that's fine. You didn't stop being a soldier when you got out. You just changed battlefields and you just need a new plan of attack. So start adjusting fire today and we'll be here with you every single step. Give us a follow at Charlie Victor Vet on YouTube and TikTok for more veteran related content. Charlie Victor, we've got your six.